Mattie McGrath.
Go to last Cloncorner. At the outset, could I be allowed to express my sympathy on the passing of the businessman, child campaigner Jonathan Irwin, and extend my sympathies to his former wife, former Senator Mary Ann O'Brien, and his family, and all the staff and nurses and children who avail of the services of Jack and Jill supports. Wonderful man who did so much for many sick children. Taoiseach, yesterday morning, William Porter from County Donegal gave a harrowing account on Highland Radio of the false allegation made against him by Tusla social workers had on him and his family and children, the devastation. Tusla social workers falsely accused him of child abuse of his own children. Tusla has now given him an official apology, and of course after a High Court case the state must pay compensation. Deputy Doherty raised this here last week with Minister O'Gorman. I've spoken to William Porter, and what is deeply troubling with this case, it appears that there has been state collusion by Tusla and the Gardaí in the Republic and the PSNI, Child Protection Services in Northern Ireland, to frame an innocent man for a crime he did not commit and deny him access to his daughter for several years. This is shocking. I can remember the Dowra case with the former Minister Sean Doherty and the 4R, and there was no child abuse, but this is outrageous. The scandal is just the latest of a strong list of scandals, including Tusla, that drip feed on us every week, which are wreaking devastating consequences on families and children. A study by UCD School of Social Policy published in June revealed that teenage girls taken into care by Tusla and accommodated in private residential care were being trafficked for sexual exploitation by gangs of predatory men. That was last June. In September, Minister O'Gorman confirmed that his department deleted, if you wouldn't mind, 3 of the 4 reports pertaining to children taken into care by Tusla, which were given to him by retired Judge Dermot Sims. The common thread running through all of these cases is there appears to be absolutely no accountability or respect for families or anybody else from Tusla, a public body funded by the state. It's truly shocking. We have the spectacle announced last Tuesday that the regulatory body, CORU, is going to conduct an inquiry in private into the conduct of 2 or 3 of the social workers that were involved in the Gavin McCabe case 10 years ago. Fair Blean O'Hin, and it's still not investigated. And now it's going to be an inside job. This is just beggars belief. Taoiseach, will you accept that Tusla, which is a decade old in this January, is totally unfit for purpose, is totally out of control, has no accountability, and listens to nobody? And will you hold a public inquiry into that, Taoiseach, because it's so badly needed? I must remember that Tusla is a public body, as I said, paid for by the taxpayer, and has a fundamental duty of self-scrutiny in pursuit of the interests of high standards. And the false allegations weren't bad enough made by Tusla, social workers, not bad enough. The agency is unable to determine the whereabouts of 52 children taken into care. 52 children taken into care, missing under the watch of Tusla. We need a public inquiry here.
I think Tusla has an extraordinarily difficult job to do. And I think the people who work in Tusla are very committed people who do work that I think very few of us in this House will be willing to do. They look after children who have been abandoned and abused by their parents. They look after children who have come to this country unaccompanied. They look after children who have endured horrific neglect and abuse. And I think it's totally wrong-headed to in any way try to blame the staff in Tusla or the agency for that. They're the ones who are trying to help children who have suffered and who have experienced these things. They're not the cause of the problem. They're the ones who are trying to help and trying to put things right. And I think we should not lose sight of that. A very difficult job to do, and one for which the outcomes can never be as good as we'd like them to be. It is a body that is accountable. It's established under law. It used to be part of the HSC, it isn't anymore. It's a dedicated agency in its own right, has a board, is accountable to the Minister for Children, and also is accountable to the Oireachtas through the Joint Oireachtas Committee. And I know they regularly come in for hearings and to answer questions. And as you mentioned, social workers are accountable to CORU, which is the regulatory body for that agency. Just finally, Deputy, you mentioned Jonathan Irwin at the outset of your remarks. Want to join with you in recognising his life and contribution, and extending my condolences to his wife and friends and family. He was a fine man, not somebody I always agreed with, but somebody who I know always had the best intentions. And one area I know he worked on very closely when I was Minister for Health was reforming the rules around medical cards for children with profound disabilities. At the time it was means tested, and we changed the rules so that any child who had a terminal illness, who was end of life, and any child who had a very severe disability was in receipt of the domiciliary care allowance payment automatically got a medical card, regardless of their parents' means and incomes. And I think that was a very significant change that was made at that time, and he contributed to that change in policy. I want to recognise that in the House today.
Thank you for that, but the reply regarding Tuesday, there was a lot of good work done by Tuesday. We accept that. But if you're going to allow public bodies like this go off and carry on all these improprieties, 10 years later we're investigating what was done to Jerry McCabe. How do they do it and get away with it if they're going to get a flag of honour from this House? It's unacceptable. Deputy Drucken has spoken in this House several times about the situation regarding when a mother reports sexual abuse to Gardaí, Tuesday get involved, experts appointed, family court accused the mother of parental alienation and recommended custody be given to the perpetrators. This is shocking stuff. I've met these mothers myself from the Midlands and all over the country. I have many families in Tipperary. So we can't just stand up and say everything is fine, they do great work. Yes, they do, but they've gone astray. They were a part of the HSE, just hived off with absolutely no proper functions or diktat. But we need a public inquiry here. And you standing up defending their work and praising him is not acceptable. The lives have been destroyed. The 52 children have been missing. Imagine 52 children in their care missing. I mean, we all have children and grandchildren, and we know that we want to have the best for them. This is shocking, and to stand up and just dismiss it that they do everything right and they are responsible. They're not accountable to anybody.
Thanks very much, Deputy. Just to point out that decisions made in relation to custody are made by the courts, and our courts act independent of TUSA and government. They hear both sides of the argument, they hear the case, they look at the evidence, and then the courts make a decision. And it's not the case that judges always make the right decisions. There's nobody who always makes the right decisions, but they do it on the basis of the evidence and the arguments they hear.
Shouldn't be.